Hi guys, my name is Anna, you're watching SimCue, and without further ado, let's get into this video. So last time we built the shell for the Casa Madrigal, and today we're working on the interior. We are immediately jumping into the dining room, which we actually see for multiple scenes throughout the film. So it's really nice to have several references to work from to actually get this as close as possible. Just like the exterior, the interior is very colorful, so I was happy to find actually a base game table and chair that I think worked really well for this space. Now, I don't remember if the green on the table is actually a cloth, but I decided to just go for this one because it also matched the yellow chairs very well that I do think are very close to the ones they actually have in the film. Now, having a lot of references also meant being able to work a lot with the details, which is both a gift and a curse because it's very nice to get it very close to what it actually looks like, but also is very time consuming. So the kitchen and dining is technically one big room, but it is separated by a half wall, so we're now working on the actual kitchen part. For the counter, I was thinking about the base game one that sort of matched the wallpaper, but I did end up going with the one from Jungle Adventure because I felt like the style just matched the vibe better. And I was happily surprised because I had completely forgotten that Jungle Adventure, even though it's just a game pack, came with a full kitchen set. So even the stove and later the fridge that I'm adding is actually Jungle Adventure, which means that for once everything just matched, and that was just so nice. So for the wall with these windows, we do actually have a short clip of Mirabel leaning up against what is clearly counters with a sink. But even though I wanted to stay as close to what it's actually like in the movie, it just didn't work very well. So I did decide to just go with my first idea, which was just this bench couch kind of situation that looks maybe hopefully a little bit built in. So I didn't really know where to place the fridge. I assume at the given time the movie is supposed to be set, there wouldn't actually be fridges, but for gameplay I obviously needed to add one. So I decided to kind of hide it and make it seem a little bit more built in with these cabinets. So oftentimes with larger builds, I like to just get all of the furniture down so that I know the layout and then come back later and do all of the decorations. But I've also noticed that that makes the video kind of jumpy. So instead for this, I really tried my best to decorate whatever room I was actually working on so that I was sort of finishing one room at a time. So that is what we are doing here. I went through the catalog, I found everything that I find could sort of match the style of the home and just placed it all out, and then we're of course going to move them around. So they have this quite large table in the middle. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a workspace, but they do have a lot of clutter on it, so that was what I added there. And also in general, even if it didn't really match the reference photos, I just found that a lot of the screenshots that I had were very cluttered. So I tried to at all times keep that in mind and just sort of keep adding and adding and adding to the space, even if I didn't really have a picture that specifically showed it. But we do actually see when Mirabel in the beginning is speaking with her mother, these blue shelves in the kitchen, so I of course added those. But unfortunately I found that not a whole lot of things actually slotted to it, which is why you can see that I've dragged out the counters so that nothing slots to the counters, and I can then just raise up and custom place all of the smaller items. And then I was also happy to find like a debug bottle that I could raise up and add to these shelves. I know they kind of look like liquor, but we are imagining that they're more like oils or something like that. So I think throughout this video you will probably, if you pay attention, be able to tell which rooms we actually see in the film and which we don't, just from how long it takes me to decorate them. Because I was very much just like looking at a reference, placing one or two items, looking at a reference, placing one or two items, going back and forth like that at all times. But I do think that that is also what I actually like about this build. I think I mentioned it in the last video that when I reached this point I was like, it's not really worth it for me to be spending all this time on a build that no one is interested in. But I was also in too deep and I really wanted to see the finished product because I actually really liked the house. And so adding all of these details really made the house come to life, and even if it wasn't really the best use of my time, I still do think that it is a really cool build and a really, really cool house. But don't worry, the dining area and the kitchen area is shortly coming to an end. The last thing we have here is just me using this base game lamp to help me custom place some things off the table, because I like things being just a little bit more off and then filling in the rest of the space with plants. In general, there are just so many plants in this build, but I absolutely love it. So we're finally moving on to another area of this house. I call this the like archway hallway, but I actually don't really know if there is a proper architectural term for this. So we see this a few times. I believe the first time really is in the very beginning. Mirabel is singing this song about the Madrigal family, and she's sort of dancing around the entire house. So throughout that 3-minute song, I had to pause so many times and take so many screenshots because this was really where I could get a lot of the details from. And then we do also see it multiple times sort of in the background, so I do have some blurry pictures of this area, but they can be useful as well. And in one of the blurry backgrounds you can kind of see that there is what I suppose is a seating area, so that is what we are adding in here. After this we will be moving on to the courtyard that we also see multiple times, and I really try to add as many details as possible. So when I just have one reference photo, I'm like, okay, there is this little arch on the side, there are some plants, there are clearly lamps on each side of the big arch, and also these small stone pieces from Jungle Adventure. I also added those because there were something similar in the specific reference photo. So I really try to make it as accurate down to the smallest detail as possible. Which is also why I eventually went through the debug catalog to try and find a really good stone that I could add to these columns. And so I was very pleased when I found this one from Jungle Adventure that I could just size down and add to the bottom, because the bottom of the columns are actually stone. It was also in the debug catalog that I found the hanging plants you saw me add, which I was also very happy about, because a lot of the ones we have in the regular catalog only goes on the wall. So it was nice to have these quite big ones, these big flower pots that actually were hanging from the ceiling so that I could add them to the spandrels. So we have now moved on to Mirabel's room, or more so the nursery. I'm pretty sure that's how they actually describe this room. So this is the room that all of the children, until they get their gift, is supposedly staying in. And because Mirabel never got her gift, she's still staying in this room, supposedly with her cousin Antonio, even though I feel like we only really see one bed. And that would of course also explain that this room has a lot of children's toys, children's drawings on the walls, and she's just kind of stuck here, even though, I mean, she's at least a teenager, right? I actually don't know how old she is, but she's way too old for this room, but it's the only room for her because the house never really allowed her to get one. So we see this room in two scenes. First when Mirabel is speaking with her cousin Antonio because he's nervous about his ceremony, and then later when Mirabel is speaking with her aunt because she wants to know more about Bruno, and this is actually where the song We Don't Talk About Bruno starts. So moving on to Isabella's room, from a few references we can see that even her door is surrounded by flowers, and we do also see her room quite a bit in the film. But this is when we really run into the struggle of magical rooms that are bigger on the inside than on the outside doesn't really work in The Sims 4. And I think this was the first time that I was kind of getting bothered with the build, because I had these references, but I was in no way able to replicate them because the room was just not big enough. So I did my best, and I do think that it's very easy to see that this is Isabella inspired. I tried to add as many flowers as possible, keep it very pink and girly, if that's what we want to call it. And while that does kind of work, I still just don't really like the room because this is not what it's supposed to look like. And I ran into this issue multiple times where I just in no way possible could actually make the rooms like they are in the movies. But never mind that, because we are now at Luisa's room, and we don't see Luisa's room, which in many ways made it easier, but also in other ways made it more difficult. I kind of gave everyone a color, and I found Luisa to be blue, mainly because she's wearing a blue skirt. We know that her gift is being very strong, so it makes sense to add some exercise equipment. And then I also, in the corner, actually added a computer just because it's so nice to have for actual gameplay. And then from there on, I was like, well, I guess I'll add blue things and sport things, even though we're actually at no point being told that she's specifically into sports. She's just very strong. And then the last detail, I don't know if you saw me quickly add it, was a teddy bear, because I feel like Luisa is also in reality just such a softie. So we're now on the other side. This is Dolores' room. Her room is the one that's closest to the lower left staircase, which you're also seeing. And I decided to assign her the orange color, even though looking back at it, maybe it should have been red. And then because I wanted to add an activity for each room, I gave her the little yoga pillow, because I imagine that if you can constantly hear everything going on, you must be so overwhelmed. So she could probably benefit from some meditation. Yeah. So Camilo's room is more yellow and uses more island living because I thought that was just fun to throw in. And then for his activity, I added a guitar because I really didn't know what activity to add for a shapeshifter. But I then thought that for a sibling relationship, it was a little bit funny to have Dolores, who can hear everything, and then have Camilo play the guitar. Moving on to Antonio's room, which we actually do see, he is giving the gift of being able to speak with animals, so his entire room is jungle themed. And I will say that I was quite happy with the placement of the rooms that we actually do see in the film sort of being in the corners, because that did give me just way more space to actually play around with and try to at least do something that is inspired by this gift that they have. Just like with Isabella's room, I don't really love this room. Like, yeah, it's jungle themed and I did want to keep it this way, but it's also just a very weird room. It's yeah, it's kind of hard to say that I'm not really a fan of something that I built myself, because it could be like, well, couldn't you just change it? But I think this is the best that I could really do to have this jungle room. I just don't like the fact that it's a jungle room. So I was thinking about actually cutting this part out, because I thought, is anyone really interested in seeing me decorate rooms that we don't see in the movie? But then I also thought, if it was me, I would actually specifically want to watch the part where people have to sort of improvise and see how do they sort of match it to the rest. So the first one, the more orange one you saw me finish, was Peppa's and Felix, and then this one is Julietta's and Augustine's. And I did actually read that the directors purposely made Peppa's side of the family more warm-toned and Julietta's side of the family more cool-toned. I don't remember why, but I thought it was a cool detail. So both of these rooms are very simple. There wasn't really space in the build for the rooms to be any bigger, so they are just some very simple bedrooms in the specific colors. Moving on to Bruno's tower, by now I realized that there's actually a lot of greenery growing up the tower, which was nice because that also added some detail. And then while we do see this tower in the film when Mirabel goes into Bruno's tower and it's basically just filled with sand, I thought, I can't just have a tower of sand. I actually wanted it to be playable as well, so we are just improvising a little bedroom for him. Bruno is also the only one with a private bathroom. There are multiple bathrooms in this house, but I didn't actually show any footage of it because I simply found that there was already so much footage, and watching me decorate like 4 bathrooms is just really not that interesting. But if you haven't already guessed it, we are in Abuela's room, and right now we're working on the table that has the candle, the magical candle that gave the Madrigal family their gift. Now, what bothered me a little bit with this whole setup is that this window actually isn't very similar to the one in the film, but it was really the best that we had. And then because the roof is up so high, the candle seems kind of low, but there was just really no way to sort of work around it, so it ended up like this. The downstairs part of Abuela's room I turned into a crystal creations area because I was already using the pack. And as I've already mentioned, for gameplay, I wanted to add activities to as many rooms as possible. And I kind of thought it actually made sense for Abuela to be working on some crystals, because that definitely could also be a way for you to add a little bit of magic to any kind of gameplay you want to do here. So we're now moving on to another room that you do not see in the film. This is at the back of the house, and here I decided to do a living room. Now, would the Madrigal family have a TV? No. Is it nice in The Sims to have a TV? Yes. So that is what I decided to go for. You can of course just delete it if you don't like it, but I thought it was nice to add, and otherwise I just tried to keep the room in the same sort of style like the others, which basically just meant using the same packs that I was already using. So in general, this house uses so much jungle adventure and so much for rent because that's really just what matched the best. But in total it uses over 10 packs. I'm not going to list each and every one of them. If you don't know, down in the description you can always find like where I have placed it, how long it took me to build, how many packs I use, what packs I use. But for the builds where I do like more than 10 packs, I honestly just write 10 plus because I cannot be bothered to write down every single pack. Now, you just saw a clip of me decorate a hallway, and we actually do see this in the film, and technically it doesn't have a door, but I just thought it was nice to have a second exit in the house. And I also found that otherwise you would probably have an exit somewhere else in the house, but for me it just made sense to add it there. This small room is just a second dining room. I honestly didn't really know what to do, so yeah. that's what I went for. But now we're moving on to the terrace, and we do actually see the terrace. There is a longer scene sequence where they are, I believe, eating lunch. The family sits down to discuss Mariano's proposal to Isabella that is supposedly happening maybe later that evening or maybe another day, but they're kind of talking about how everyone should act and how everything should be prepared. So we do see a few snippets of the terrace and of the outside. Here you see me just going through the debug catalog, finding anything that could really fit the space. I was specifically happy to find these sacks because we actually do see that at the end of the dining table, they have just a lot of sacks. I assume they just have a lot of food. Like I said earlier, they probably didn't actually have a fridge, so I'm guessing this is where they kept some of it. I then added in the table where they are serving the food. We don't know if this is actually at all times there, but we see it in the film, so I added it. And here I again went in with the little lamp trick to just get everything to stay nicely on the table. But another reason for me going through the debug catalog was to try and see if I can find some really big pots, which I did find. I was very happy about that because it seems like they have those around the terrace. And also in general, what I've learned from all of the references that they just have a lot of plants and a lot of flowers. So to not have to use the same ones like over and over, it was nice to have these from the debug catalog to kind of create some custom pots. Next you'll see me decorate this like fenced in space. I honestly don't really know what it is. We just see a snippet of it when Mirabel comes to speak with Dolores, but it turns out that it's actually Camilo who has shapeshifted in order to get more food. So I just decided to turn it into more storage because I really didn't know what else to add. For landscaping, I tried to very much add what is in the environment, but I also wanted it to be a little more jungle-like, so we do add a bit of that as well. I usually use a lot of the live edit objects because that first of all means that I can get the actual ones in the environment, and also it means that you're not adding any value to the build. So I of course used items from For Rent, so it perfectly matched the environment, but I also went in with a bit of jungle adventure, and I also found some very nice Realm of Magic ferns, which I definitely did not expect, but I could just see multiple fern-like plants in the reference photos, and these were just the nicest looking ones. Because that is definitely the risk with using debug items, is that some of them are like very low quality. Now at the end of this video, I'll just take you on a short tour of the place, showing you some of the rooms that aren't actually in this video. So if you're curious about any of that, I do hope that you stick around to the end. Otherwise, I'm just going to use this time to mention once again, I think I did it in my last video as well, but I'm trying for February to actually post 2 videos a week. And I'm telling you this because I hope that maybe some of you are a little bit excited about that, but more so also because it kind of holds me accountable. It's like, now I've said it, so I kind of have to go through with it. But I have rambled enough, so let's jump into a tour of this place. So here we are, I have loaded up the game. Now I will try my best to just focus on things that you haven't really seen. And I do think that one of the things that can be kind of difficult to follow at 8 times speed is all of the roofing we got going on, especially here in the front, but in general for the entire build. And I just feel like it adds so much interest to the place. So for example, here at the front, this roof is actually lowered by 2. And when I talk about numbers, I'm sort of indicating like platform levels. That's kind of how the game is working. So this is like 2 platforms lower than the actual wall, which is also why we can see that it goes underneath the roof here, because this is at regular height. We have the same thing over here. I don't remember how much this is lowered by, maybe 3, but from the reference photos we can very clearly see that the balcony has a lower roof in comparison to the rest of the build. We also have something similar going on here, oh gosh, with Abuela's room. This is heightened instead, this is raised up. So this is the regular roof, and then here for Abuela's room you can also see it when I move the cursor around. So this is the regular room. And I was just very lucky that this window only has an opening here, and then the upper part is just decorative, because this part here is actually half wall, and then on top of that we then have the roof. So we can have roofs at a lot of different heights. We see it here as well. There is a scene where Mirabel is like running around on the roofs trying to get to the candle, and we notice that this roof is higher than the roof here. So this is also raised by 2. Now, beginning at the outside, otherwise you do, oh gosh, see this, but I do think that they have a very nice terrace, and I'm not sure if the footage was cut a little bit short for the landscaping. So what we have here is the very lovely terrace where we primarily see this part, and then I sort of freestyle everything else. I thought for gameplay, it would be nice to maybe have a chicken coop. And I absolutely love this debug piece we have from Island Living with all of the clothing. Otherwise, I think we should start and have a top-down view. So here we have all of the different parts. So if we go down, and I think we should start at the bottom. Now, since I did this build, something very exciting has happened, because the base game has come out with an update, and specifically an update to the railings. And I have waited for this for so long. I honestly considered like a little bit back doing almost like a rant video of things I feel like they should add that to me seems kind of simple. Now they did add more than I expected, but what we do have now is that I can go in at the rail. Let's just find it, this one. And specifically for this stair, it works super well. So normally it just adds the double railing, and then we have this really annoying weird glitch where it's like in the wall. So now if I click on the stair, I can then do only left rail, and oh my gosh, what a game changer. I feel like I need to go through all of my old builds and correct the railing, because that is just absolutely stunning. Now for this one, I do want the double rail, but another thing they added is that we can now, is it called like flare out the stair? And I actually do think that this one has that. So that is another little neat detail that I did not expect, but I'm happy to have it. And I do think we can do some very cool things with it. Now for the staircase down here, we run into another problem though, because this one, while it could be cool to just do the right railing, you could fall off here. So we do kind of want the left rail, only doing the left rail. You can also fall down. And with the double rail, we still have that weird glitch. Now, if we had a wall here, which I did try, but it really didn't look very good, we could actually go and only have the railing at the bottom. Oh, just a little bit more like that. But right now they can still fall off here. So I didn't expect this. I am still very happy with the update. So unfortunately, this one, we have to accept the glitch. That's just how it is. But otherwise, starting at the bottom, things that you did not see in the footage. Here I added a bathroom. Now from the references, this door does not exist, but I do feel like from other references, we do have the bump out. So I did kind of want to keep that. So I just decided to turn it into a bathroom because they would obviously have some bathrooms. Now I know that this is set in Colombia, and I just have to admit that I honestly don't know the toilet situation. So there is a bit of a mix here. So this one has the squat toilet. I actually think all the ones at the ground floor have squat toilets, and then the upper floors have regular toilets, because I don't know. And I am so sorry if in Colombia you don't have any squat toilets. That is definitely a mistake on my part. Easy to change though. Then further down, what I like to call the archway hallway, we have another little toilet, another little bump out that I could turn into a toilet. We also have over here, actually next to the terrace, and also with an entrance from the terrace. So you enter this room from the outside, another little toilet, and also with some cleaning supplies. I felt like, that made sense. And then of course, kitchen dining, which you've already seen so much footage of. So going upstairs, we have all of the rooms, which you saw me decorate. I'm noticing now that these parts are not really decorated. So when I'm done with the tour, I will do that and make sure that when this is uploaded, you actually have this part decorated and looking nice as well. But next to Luisa's room, I also made a little bathroom. These items are just from Seasons, and the layout is a little bit weird, but that is because this bathtub is actually covering the chimney from the fireplace down in the kitchen. So we're just going to leave that there. And then at the bottom of Bruno's tower, we also have a bathroom. This one uses more parts from Jungle Adventure. Going up one bit, you did see me furnish Antonio's room and also Abuela's room, but Abuela also has a private bathroom because it was easy to fit that in here. And then over here, I think you saw me furnish this part because I didn't really know what to do for Bruno's tower. And I thought, after all, he should have an actual room. And he also has a little bathroom with a squat toilet. You can change it. You can change whatever you like with these builds. Now, actually, we do see Bruno introduced. I also need to add a painting here, I found, because Mirabel enters a painting right here next to Dolores' room, and then she's kind of in between the walls. But again, having a magical house in a film doesn't mean that I can create a magical home here in The Sims 4, so that is why I still gave Bruno a regular room. Now over here at Isabella's room, you did see me furnish this part, but we also have the upstairs. I didn't do too much. You can change it again, but I just gave her an easel. I thought painting could be her activity. I actually do think that's quite fitting. And then otherwise I just used a lot of romantic garden because I was already using that and it seemed fitting, yes. And then over here at Bruno's tower, I didn't show you before, but the upper floor is just sand. And then with a big hourglass, this is a sized up hourglass from Life and Death. I didn't even do railing because I had reached a point where I was so done with this build. And if I add railing now, all of these roofs will delete themselves and I cannot be bothered to add them back in. So, you know, maybe it's okay. I think those were the few details that I just wanted to point out. Otherwise, I'll just give you a quick look here at the side where we have all of the nice landscaping, because from the references, we can also see that this is more like in the jungle. And then we have here the back, a little bit more boring, right on the edge. I did notice that a lot of people in the gallery actually built this on a lot from Island Living. I just felt like the rest of the area in Island Living didn't really fit, because I get that this obviously looks way too modern in comparison to what we see in the film, but I do like that we have all of the nice like colored buildings and that there actually is a city, because they do live in a town at least. So I find that this is a better fit, but you can of course place it wherever you want. And if you do place it, because I think the one in Island Living is 50 by 50, so you could add a bit more greenery and, you know, maybe make it fit a little bit better. You can make whatever changes you like. You're always welcome to do that. I really hope that just a few of you will enjoy this build, and I think that is it from me. I wish you a lovely day. I hope to see you next time, and bye!